that's terrific. Now you can really hear how you're using the different registers on the horn through all that, aren't you?
Oh well, it's important to use the whole horn because it got so many different colors that you can get. Down here is a very different color than up here.
Now, is that something you can practice?
Of course it is. Of course it is.
All right.
Scales and arpeggios are the best ways to do it.
Yeah.
You go from all the way from the bottom of the horn to the middle of the horn to the top of the horn.
Is it hard to keep in tune up there?
Well, the thing about the New Orleans music as opposed to classical music is that the clarinet is permitted to use devices that make it a little easier to fudge with the pitch and to have the same flexibility that a singer might have.
Uh-huh. Can you show us some of that?
Well, for instance, singers use vibrato, right?
Uh-huh.
Where you can maybe, like some of the New Orleans musicians were listening to opera singers, some of them were listening to street musicians and people hollering in the street. So everything in between. You have the kind of the opera style vibrato, like maybe Sidney Bechet might use it. But you might have the vibrato that might be more like maybe a guitar or something. Or something a little more bluesy even.
Wow. So now you're going even beyond vibrato and really bending the horn. It's almost like you're bending it into different shapes.
That's what singers do, isn't it? And for me, that's what the blues is all about. It's about trying to find some of those vocal elements.
So how do you practice some of that bending?
Well, sometimes it's a combination of moving your fingers, but also adjusting here at the same time. So instead of, it would be.
And is there something up here that's going on now?
Well, you're opening up a little bit to adjust. Basically, even if you had it just the mouthpiece, you could do it. Where the size of the oral cavity is actually becoming part of the instrument.
So it's kind of a two-pronged process where you practice with just the mouthpiece and the sliding, and you practice with the fingers, the very gradual movement.
Well, that's how I learned to do it, yeah.
Uh-huh. Now, sometimes I notice you growl when you play. How do you make one of those kind of bluesy growls?
Well, the growl tone comes from, and brass players do this too. You're basically singing at the same time that you're playing the note.
Uh-huh.
So the same way you might with a kazoo, right? You're humming and playing at the same time, so.
Now, I know one of your great heroes, Sidney Bechet. You were telling me about this wonderful song of his, Blue Horizon.
You know, we were talking about Blue Horizon because it's an example where as much as you want to have some of this this wonderful energy of the blues, you can still think about it as a composition and use architecture to develop your ideas, to almost think in the phrases that a vocalist might use. Blues structures are often a phrase that gets repeated, and then there's a response to that phrase. If we think about it the same way, we can actually make our phrases and our ideas work that way, and it gives a sense of narrative. We're telling a story, right?
Uh-huh.
So the idea is when they're related, it makes the listener want to know what's going to come next.
Uh-huh. And I noticed that when you're playing, a lot of times it's like idea, 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 right?
Yeah, well, some of my favorite players definitely had a lot of that. And Bechet was a master. That Blue Horizon, there's 6 choruses, and it just builds and builds, and has these shorter periods and longer periods within it to really, your imagination goes from the beginning to the end. And
Seems like that's a far cry from just playing a blues scale.
the notes of the pentatonic scale are definitely present. And that's where we can still get the flatted third and the flatted seventh that we have to give it that color. But so it's still basically a pentatonic, but I'm not really thinking about the blues scale.
Well, let's go ahead and play some blues now. and maybe we'll play 4 chords this time and see how you develop.
All right.
I know it's going to be different. Here we go.
All right.